If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers. Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, aging. So, Corbin, do you know what episode this is?
It's our final episode of season 2. Where has the year gone?
If you recall, we kicked off the season with resolutions for aging well.
That was a two-parter, if I recall.
It was. What do you think about revisiting those resolutions and talking about how the year has gone?
Sounds like a plan. Did you age well in 2023?
I feel like I did.
Well, let's revisit the resolution we recommended at the start of the New Year's. My first recommendation was add more resistance training and strive for a goal.
How'd that go?
Yeah, it didn't go as well as I wanted to. Obviously, with planning a wedding and everything else, things just kind of, it didn't go as well as I wanted it to. We'll just say that.
You know what Spencer Lee says?
Say it again.
You know what Spencer Lee says, right?
No, tell me.
We don't even know who Spencer Lee is, one of the great collegiate wrestlers. But he said, excuses are for wusses. And that's after wrestling to the NCAA finals with 2 damaged ACLs.
I don't have an excuse. I got no one to blame but myself.
There you go. Well, mine was make diet a noun. These were suggestions for people who are seeking to age well. I would say, though, that it is something that I do personally. So what was your next one?
My next one was wake up before the sun.
And
honestly,
how's that going since you were late today?
Okay. In my defense, I'm also a little jet lagged. But other than that, waking up before the sun was something that I was doing consistently, regularly. I would wake up and we got a new puppy this year, so I would wake up and take him on a walk, or I'd wake up and get my Bible reading done, or, it was easier as the sun started setting during the colder months, but it was when the sun was rising earlier and earlier. Like at one point it rose at 4:45 a.m. And that one was a little bit more challenging.
That's sleeping in.
Yeah.
I think I said something about waking up before the sun, the S-U-N, and also waking up before the S-O-N. And I'm pretty impressed that my 18-year-old son is getting up early. He's not necessarily getting up before the sun, but he's getting up to work out. He's recognizing that he needs to do some other strengthening exercise, conditioning exercises other than his typical MMA training that he's doing in the evening. And so he's getting up early before school and everything else. So kind of impressed with that.
I didn't know he's doing MMA.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he's got his first fight coming up in March.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. My next one was lift weights. And of course, I've been doing that, and I think I consistently have been doing that. I don't think I've missed too much. I mean, if I've missed, it's been kind of a planned, it's okay to miss today because of the way I'm programming my exercise. And so the weights are going up. I'm getting stronger. I feel pretty good with all that. But again, this was a recommended resolution for others. So I hope that our listeners also lifted weights throughout the year.
Yeah, and especially if you've been listening to this podcast, resistance training is super important as you age well.
Have you been lifting weights throughout the year?
Not throughout the year, not as consistently as I'd like, but I do get some resistance training in. Now that everything's coming together, it's definitely I have my own little schedule now, and I'm getting back into the swing of things, and I feel good. Feel good. It's only been a couple weeks, but getting back into it, and yeah, feel great.
Just make sure you get that habit going again before you have kids.
Yeah, I know.
Because I guarantee once that first kid comes, it gets harder for a while. So what was your next one?
Read the Bible verse or anything and reflect on it.
And how's that going?
That's going great. That's the one thing I've been super consistent on. It's really powerful. Especially, so I just got back from a trip. I was down in Costa Rica. It was kind of like a family trip. And it's, as most of you know, that I've stopped drinking. No more alcohol. But when you're in a tropical paradise and everyone around you is consuming adult beverages, sometimes that temptation gets there. And I brought my Bible with me, and I'd wake up pretty early and I'd start reading the Bible. And almost in every single verse, it was that I read in the morning, something either had to do with, don't get intoxicated, or there was something that was staying true and not giving into what the rest of the world was doing. And so that reflection and meditating on those words just kind of kept me strong throughout that trip. And it was nice. I definitely give a shout out to my Bible for doing that.
Well, good. I'd have to say I haven't been reading as much as I'd like to through the course of this year, but it's just been a really, really tight schedule with so much going on, and hasn't been as much of a priority for me reading, but I have been doing my reflection and journaling on a fairly regular basis. I miss a few days here and there. My next one was do less cardio, which again was a recommendation for other individuals. I think I did a lot less than I would like to have, not intentionally. Just again, with the schedule, it was kind of tough to get as much cardio in. So I'm kind of getting back to that where I'm making a little bit more time. And it's a bit easier with my schedule right now to do it right after work at home, do a quick cardio workout, walk the dogs, and then I generally have to go and do strength and conditioning with the wrestlers. But, I'm trying to do a little more cardio, but not overdoing the cardio. And that was the whole intent of that particular resolution, was to not be overemphasizing the cardio, but trying to put more time into doing the resistance training. And so I could say I'm doing pretty well with that one.
Yeah. My next one was buy a house, set money aside. Definitely did a good job setting money aside. Buying a house, no, didn't buy a house this year, but I've set a lot of money aside. We ended up, we had a pretty big purchase with the wedding. I paid off all my student loans. I'm actually debt free right now at this moment. So through all the savings, I was able to pay off those big, massive bills. So yeah, it's pretty good. I guess not necessarily a house, but ending 2023 debt free is a pretty good feeling nonetheless.
Well, I think that was the general sense of what your resolution was really to focus on saving money purposefully and getting out of debt. And really, this is not the best market to be buying a house in the Portland area right now.
No.
Housing prices are just ridiculously high. You're not getting anything for your money here. I mean, the only people that are buying, we've sold a lot of houses in our neighborhood, and the prices, I think our house is worth more than twice what we paid for it 15 years ago. But I see most of the license plates in the houses of people that are moving into the neighborhood have California on them. And so I know they're coming out of where they have gotten a lot out of their houses. They've been able to sell those and then come up here and buy into our really tight market. So I'm congratulate you on setting money aside and getting debt free. That's really good. And that's not an easy thing to do, especially for your generation.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. I'm proud of myself because I didn't think I'd ever pay off my student loans, but ended up doing it. And that was pretty spectacular, and paid off my car and credit cards and everything. So it was nice.
Nice. My next one was to find and maintain a healthy body composition. I still stand by that for anybody going into 2024 to use that as a resolution. For myself, I think I did okay. I mean, my weight went up, but I think, and I have not gotten into the bod pod or had the skin folds done, but I've gained muscle mass from the lifting and things like that. And so I feel pretty good at 60 of where my body composition is at. I'm trying right now, doing my almost annual. It's like Christmas time. I say, okay, well, how much could I improve my body composition over the Christmas break? When we're not supposed to be able to lose weight. And so we'll see how that kind of goes. I know this will be aired just by the end of the month. So probably in our next episode, maybe I can have some indication as to whether or not I'm doing pretty well with that. But I maintain that. I think, again, maintain a healthy body composition. Your thoughts?
I think that'll be pretty easy for you. I mean, I know you're super consistent with your workout and your regimen, your sleep plan. You're pretty strict on your diet. I don't really see you slipping. You don't get cravings really.
Oh, I get cravings.
Not really though.
I get healthy cravings now that I've started to adjust to having healthier cravings. I mean, I think one of the things that has caused my weight to creep up is snacking on things like nuts, because they're easily accessible. I mean, it's a healthy snack. It's probably not bad for me, and it's not really adding significant body fat, but I just, it's easy to grab a handful of cashews and another handful, and those calories begin to add up.
Yeah. See, that's the point, that you're aware of calorie counting. And a lot of people during the holidays, it's like calories don't exist,
Yeah.
so they don't. So I don't really see that being a problem for you.
You make those calories worth it, and that's the key. And I think we had that discussion recently when Sandy Griffin was on. We talked a little bit about around the holidays and calories and things like that. So hopefully we continue that into 2024. What was your next one?
Volunteer. Now, I've volunteered a couple times throughout the year. There were some events during summertime that I volunteered my time to help out. At one point, there was, there's a big air show. There was a women's conference where I was one of the parking lot instructors. I had those little light up batons, I guess you could say, and I would direct the traffic because it got.
Did you cause any wrecks?
No, not at all.
Any cars dinged because you?
No, sir. That would not me.
That's good.
So yeah, I may not have volunteered as much as I'd like. I do know that in 2023, my time was really, really thin, but there was a few items that I did volunteer at. That was I don't know. There's really nothing better than volunteering and helping. It's a really good feeling.
Yeah, I mean, the extent of my volunteering was with the coaching and kind of on the board of the wrestling team. That takes up a significant amount of time with everything else. It's like, I'd like to be able to volunteer in some other areas, but it just hasn't been happening as much. But hopefully our listeners are heeding your recommendations and volunteering quite a bit throughout the year. My next one was to plan for exercise or to periodize. And I mean, that's what I'm all about. And so I continue to do that. I hope the listeners have kind of understood, and as we've talked about it throughout the year, how to take advantage of periods of time where we're working on hypertrophy, working on strength, maybe even working on power, working on times where we're trying to gain muscle mass, other times we're trying to lose body fat, not just going to the gym, going through the motions and doing the same thing day after day after day. How about you? I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co-founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti-aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging.
Well, I think I need to kind of get back into doing things day after day after day, just in the beginning. So it's a routine, but not have that routine hinder me, I guess you could say. Like, obviously, once I've adapted to that routine, switch it up a bit or tweak things here and there in order to improve my gains or my growth. But right now, I think getting back into it is the most important part. And so if that involves consistency, doing the same thing over and over and over again until it just becomes second nature, cool. Now we can add more.
Well, I think, when you're just getting back into it, and basic periodization would be to focus on what is commonly referred to in the strength and conditioning field as general physical preparedness. And that's where we're just trying to build up a work capacity. And so, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more basic routine, doing much of the same thing, whether it's improving technique, whether it's doing a little bit more cardio, doing more sets of just the basic exercises at lower weights, getting that technique back, getting the habit of going into the gym on a daily, regular basis. And then probably after, I would say no more than about 12 weeks, one should be then changing up that routine. Now moving into something like, okay, I'm going to focus on hypertrophy, or I'm going to focus on strength, and then going maybe every 4 to 12 weeks, changing up the program, doing something where you're altering the goal a little bit, but not so much that it's affecting the long-term goal. The long-term goal should be whatever it's going to be. And then what are the steps that you can do throughout that to make that happen? I think the more that we just continue at that same progression, we're going to see less and less growth over time, because we start to get more stale. But on the opposite side of that is a lot of people go, well, I'm just going to have as much variety as possible. And we know that that's nonsense. I mean, this whole sense of exercise chaos, or whatever you might want to call it, where you're just doing whatever exercise each day, you never really progress with that, because you're not getting the consistency in the movement and the consistency in the progression. So good luck with getting started with it, and we'll keep on you. Every so many episodes, maybe we'll have to talk to you about what are you doing.
Yeah, that's, you know what? I need an accountability buddy. So I think that would be really good. Help me out, listeners. Keep me staying strong. All right. In part 2, we discussed our list, must-have equipment for a home gym. And I'm curious, would your list change? Have you added any of the equipment? And if so, how's it going?
Well, I think when we aired that episode, I had already purchased most of the items on my list. I had included a hex bar, Mark Bell slingshot, a Bulgarian bag, the barbell bomb, and neoprene sleeves for my Zercher squats and lifts. What was on your list?
It included a set of adjustable dumbbells, resistant bands, kettlebells, and a pull-up bar that attached on a door frame, and an adjustable step.
Okay, did you purchase any of these?
No.
You did not?
No.
Okay, listeners, don't follow Corbin's
Hey, in my defense, though,
you did get out of debt.
Well, I got out of debt, and I was also planning a wedding. And,
and you go to a gym, right? So you're not necessarily.
Yeah, I also have a home gym in my apartment complex. So I got a gym there, and then there's a gym that I just signed up for right next to my work. So it's kind of unnecessary.
And also, in your defense, these lists were not necessarily for our own personal purchases. These were what we were recommending that people might want to purchase if they were trying to
start up their own
home gym. And so, kind of in terms of my list, I think the only thing that I had not gotten at the time of the recording of that episode was the barbell bomb. And I kind of jokingly said that I wanted my wife to get that for me for Christmas. And I did, in fact, get it as a stocking stuffer. So I did get the barbell bomb. And I can happily say I've used all of these items pretty significantly. The hex bar, it has become one of my favorite bars for doing deadlifts and RDLs. It has really, really saved my shoulders and even my back a bit doing deadlifts. Not that I'm deadlifting as much. I tend to do a bit more of like a hex bar RDL. And I think I've actually gone more to hex bar and Zercher hold RDLs as opposed to a straight bar, more standard RDL. So I've used it. I use the hex bar quite a bit. I do use it as well with my wrestlers for carries and stuff like that. We use the hex bar quite a bit. We do, again, RDLs and a lot of different exercises. Without Mark Bell slingshot, my bench would be, and my shoulder would be in horrible condition right now. It has, I think, literally saved my shoulder. I've gone from, I forget when it started, but I at one point had just doing heavy dips. My shoulder just popped, and I think I did a little bit of damage to my labrum. I'm not sure exactly. I never had it really checked out. Not a good recommendation for our listeners to not have something checked out, but I kind of understood the circumstances. I knew how to rehab it, and I continued to exercise. I didn't let it stop me, but I got Mark Bell slingshot so that I could continue to bench. I started back to light, but what the slingshot does is it takes some of that load off of the anterior shoulder and helps to kind of protect me from going too deep into a stretch. I'm still using a very controlled benching motion. Eventually, it didn't take too long. I was able to start dipping again, and I use it for dips and I use it for bench press. My weights have gone up. My shoulder is feeling incredibly good. And so I strongly recommend that. In fact, I bought one for the bag of equipment that I take to wrestling strength and conditioning, because we have a few guys here and there that'll have shoulder issues, and I'm trying to get them. We don't bench a lot because I'm not a big fan of benching for athleticism. And that's probably a whole nother episode. But we have a couple that have some shoulder issues. So I'm going to just go ahead and get one that I can keep in the bag and take there every time, and they can use it. So trying to encourage them to use it as well. But it is really, really a good tool for somebody who is trying to protect that shoulder and yet still trying to build up some significant strength without causing further damage. Because a bench is a really, really horrible exercise for the shoulder, especially the way most people do it. The Bulgarian bag, I'd recommended that. I'd had one for years. It's just recently looking back at how long I've had mine. I think it's been at least 6 years that I've had my official Suples Bulgarian bag. I've been using the Bulgarian bag for probably about 8 years. Still love that. Still use it. The barbell bomb I got, and I do a lot of landmine exercises, and I love that thing. It's not absolutely necessary, but it is a lot better for the end of my Olympic bars. It gives a little bit better motion, a little bit better stability of the bar, and I don't have to invest in a stand for the landmine. So I like that. I would recommend that as well. And the neoprene elbow sleeves, I couldn't Zercher squat or RDL without those elbow sleeves because I go pretty heavy, and it really just makes it a little bit more comfortable. I don't exercise in sweatshirts or anything with really long sleeves. I have bought extra ones for the wrestlers because they will tend to want to use the thicker squat pads, which I hate even having in a gym. And they're just not as comfortable and as practical for them. And they like the neoprene sleeves. And so they're always kind of fighting over those. So I could probably buy 6 more sets for them to be able to use, but that's not for me to buy. But they're great, and they've really kind of helped me to be able to do the Zerchers pretty regularly. It's almost my go-to squat.
Okay, so 2024 is right around the corner, building off 2023. Let's discuss exercise recommendation for aging well in 2024.
All right, where do we start?
Let's approach these by categories. Wait, what would be your recommendation for dietary change for someone should make in 2024?
Oh, that's easy. I'd add creatine to the diet. I might also suggest branched chain amino acids.
So just the liquid amino acids or just more meat in their diet?
Well, branched chain amino acids, to get those more in the diet would be to actually take a supplement powdered form. I've been using, I just go bulk supplements. They have pretty inexpensive, good quality product. And I just do, serving of branched chain amino acids with every workout. I partly started doing that because I lift in the morning, fasted. I'm not having any nutrients in my body until after I work out. And so mixing that and creatine along with kind of a hydration powder has helped kind of just get me going in the morning. And there's increasing evidence that branched chain amino acids, particularly leucine, can have a significant effect on just simply preserving muscle hypertrophy and muscle strength in aging adults and any individual. And so some of this research, even without lifting, older adults have gained muscle mass by just simply taking branched chain amino acids. And so the evidence is looking pretty good. I typically don't jump on supplementation too often, but I think it can be worth it, especially for people who are not getting enough protein. And even if you're taking a whey supplement and doing some of those types of things, that added boost of the leucine could be pretty important for individuals. And in creatine, we've talked about creatine, how that has a significant effect for really almost all ages.
Yeah.
That most Americans are not getting enough creatine. So it kind of behooves us to take it as a supplement on a more daily basis in order to kind of just boost both brain development, brain function, as well as muscle function.
Well, creatine is it's a super supplement. It really is. It's besides gaining all the muscle mass that you'd like, the strength, the muscular endurance, and also, I mean, there's no denying the studies and the research that's out there on the cognitive function that creatine has as well. So it's just, why would you not take it?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
What would be your dietary change recommendation for 2024?
Man, that's a good question. I would have to say, and seems kind of simple, seems pretty easy, but I've noticed within the last couple months, it's been kind of a challenge for me. And I think not necessarily drinking my calories. Now, I don't mean drinking as in alcohol. I mean, I love lemonade. I love Arnold Palmer's. And I've just been like getting the Simply brand lemonade. I drink a lot of that. And, there's only 3 ingredients. There's lemon, water, and sugar. But that sugar is what's really kind of killing, doing a lot of damage to your body. In fact, there's a lot of literature out there that says that sugar is almost as damaging to the body as alcohol in certain situations, especially on the liver. Liver doesn't necessarily recognize it as that much of a difference.
Hey, think about it. I mean, there is no nutritional value to sugar.
No.
Other than that the muscles need glucose for performance. And so if you are exercising very intensely and right around that workout, that's probably when sugar is okay. It's not going to do as much damage to your body. But sugar itself is also very inflammatory.
Yeah.
And I think we ignore its role in heart disease. We tend to blame cholesterol a lot more, but in reality, it's probably the fact that so many of our foods have high sugar as well as high fat. And so, yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea I guess you're saying you want to limit sugar?
Limit sugar and limit when I get a craving for like a
drink.
Yeah, like a juice or something, Gatorade. Even Gatorade, even. I mean, I know it's like, oh, it's a sports drink, but it's filled with sugar. It really is.
It amazes me how many people I see drinking Gatorade and they're not exercising. It's like, what's the point here, people? It's like you drink it when you're exercising or immediately after the exercise as a recovery beverage. That's what it's intended for. It's not intended to be your regular hydration beverage, which really should be mainly just water. But, we need to drink more fluid throughout the day. But, let's start limiting, pop or soda, whatever you decide to call it, sugary drinks, even fruit juices. I think it's a good recommendation to eat your fruit rather than drink your fruit.
Yeah.
And when you talk about liquid diet, I I immediately kind of go to the idea of like whey protein, smoothies, and all that kind of stuff. And those can have benefits depending on your schedule. Like for myself, because of my teaching schedule, I almost have to have a certain amount of kind of liquid diet through the day because I can down a whey protein shake that has all my macros loaded up in it between classes. I can't sit down and eat a full meal. And so I do that, but it's not as recommended because typically if you're drinking your meals, you're going to be more likely to consume more calories and it's going to be a little less filling. And it's also not giving you some of the other things that you might need, like certain fibers and, just the satiety of sitting down and actually eating the food. So good recommendation.
Well, and kind of go off of what you're saying, there's, those people that have those macro apps. It's really interesting. If you eat a banana, it ends up being less sugar than if you blend a banana and drink it. Isn't that weird? Same banana, but those apps will reflect that.
I think that's got to be a flaw in the app.
No, it's
because it can't be different. I mean, obviously how you absorb nutrients might be a little bit different. And from an absorption standpoint, there could be, but you don't know that. I mean, it's too individualized, but just because you a smash a banana doesn't destroy any of the calories. The calories are still
there.
There.
Opens up the sugar. I think it's something to do with insulin spikes. I could be wrong though.
It may be, but it's the same amount of sugar. It might, make it more likely that sugar is going to get into your system. So it might affect the glycemic index, and I'm not totally sure on that, but the calories are the same. I don't know where they get that. I use the RP diet app, and I think that's been pretty effective and pretty good. And they don't differentiate between eating a banana that you just peeled versus putting it in your smoothie. I mean, a banana is a banana, an apple is an apple.
Yeah.
So,
well, okay. Next category. What exercise movements would you recommend someone add to their program to age well?
Well, that's easy, and I bet you know my answer.
The Zercher squat.
Of course, the Zercher squat. What movement would you add?
Either regular squat. I'm a big fan of low bar, or deadlifts. I really think deadlifts are just such a key factor. But you know what? I would add a new one. I don't know. I don't even know what to call this. Basically, once individuals are in that third or fourth age, I would actually add having them lie on the ground and then attempt to get up. So they can get up in 3 different directions. They can roll to the right and try and get up that way, roll to the left, try and get up that way, or start on their stomach and try and push themselves up to a standing position. And I know that seems really, really silly, but I think that the older we get, if we're not being consistent with our resistance training, the risk of falls can have a huge impact as we hit that third or fourth age. And so being in a situation where we're able to get ourselves out of it, I think that would play a huge role in going forward. I don't even know what I'm saying. I think it'd play a huge role in not having us lie there, essentially.
And I would suggest that, this is the Aging Well podcast, that we try and get on the front end of all that to where we're not having to do those exercises in order to regain capacity.
Right.
We want to be doing the things that are going to help prevent us from having to retrain ourselves and all that. And so, yes, if you're having difficulty getting from a lying position, you need to practice it and build it up. I would definitely say that. Now, for the deadlift, I am not a fan. I know we talk about the deadlift or the hip hinge being one of our core 5 movement patterns, but I'm a bit cautious about recommending the traditional straight bar deadlift because, for one, it's a very difficult technique for a lot of people to do that well and lift it heavy enough. So I would kind of preface the deadlift with you're probably better off, unless you are a power lifter, doing like a hex bar deadlift, or just simply focusing more on like the RDL, not doing a heavy, really straight bar kind of deadlift, because for an athlete, it's not the most athletic type of movement. It can significantly increase the risk of injury if somebody is lifting improperly or too heavy. So I would just kind of preface that with, look at maybe a hex bar or a variation of the deadlift as opposed to your more traditional alternate grip power lifter kind of deadlift. And if you're going to deadlift, be very, very, very strict on form. I had a wrestler who is kind of repeatedly talked about having some back pain because in PE class he had to max out on the deadlift. And I'm like, I just want to like bury my hand in my face. Like, seriously, you should not, as a freshman in high school, be doing maximal straight bar deadlifts, because you probably will get hurt.
Yeah, no kidding. I feel like that falls on the weight training coach. Because our weight training coach in high school, he would not allow us to do dead bars as freshmen, and rarely as a sophomore. You had to prove that you mastered form and technique in like a series of other exercises leading up to the deadlift before actually performing deadlifts or power cleans, for that matter.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's the only reason really to be doing a traditional deadlift, is as a learning component to a power clean or a jerk. But other than that, I mean, powerlifting deadlifts are not going to be the best lifts for most people. So kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for cardio exercise?
Well, I think it all kind of depends on the individual's goals. If they want to maintain endurance, then I would say like a LISS, LISS, long interval steady state training. I would always suggest that if they're wanting to tone up and build that strength. I'm a huge fan of HIIT training. I think those high intensity interval training, I think that just goes, I don't know. I just feel like you give it your all, within 40 seconds, have 20 seconds of recovery, give it all again, 20 seconds of recovery. I love that style of training, but that's not for everyone. So I think it's whatever their goals are, really.
Now, I think with the low intensity, steady state exercise, and I've begun to teach my students, I have a diagram that I call my exercise continuum. And on the far left, the cardiorespiratory endurance side is the low intensity, steady state exercise. And I really stress that for the most part, that borderlines more on physical activity as opposed to exercise, because at a low intensity, you're not significantly stressing the heart and the vascular system and the muscle itself to be able to improve VO2 max, which is our measure of oxidative capacity. And so we want to do more of that, and do more of that is more of a non-exercise activity thermogenesis, to burn calories just by moving more, and focus in on doing the things that are going to most stress the heart muscle to be able to create improvements. Now, if you haven't been exercising at all, getting movement more, doing low intensity, steady state to build up that capacity to move for a prolonged period of time is good. But I think I would lean more toward the high intensity interval training. As we kind of talked about what we might talk about in this episode, I thought for me, it's Tabata, and not the air quote Tabata, but the IE1 protocol, the original Tabata type of protocol, and trying to do that. Not that it would be perfect, and I think the air quotes still have to kind of go around that, because none of us are going to really match that true IE1 protocol, but going as hard as we can for 20 seconds, taking 10 seconds off, and repeating that 8 times gives us 4 minutes of very intense cardiovascular exercise that is going to stimulate improvements in VO2 max. And then maybe you can repeat that a couple times, since we're not quite getting that fullest intensity. But whether it's a 20-second on, 10-second off, 40 seconds of high intensity with a recovery. Vary up your intensity durations, but do more high intensity interval type of training to be able to get as much maximal stimulus to the cardiovascular system to see improvements within the framework of your current health. I got to emphasize that.
Right.
High intensity interval training is not for a cardiac patient. Although in a sense it is, because what is that high intensity that they're capable of doing, but it's not going to seem the same as somebody who is more apparently healthy and going, all out on a bike or a rower or whatever type of equipment you choose to use for your cardio. And I think, when a lot of people say, what do you recommend for cardio exercise? Oh, the treadmill or the bike or the elliptical. Those things don't really matter. Choose the equipment that first you have available to you. Second, that you like and are going to do on a more regular basis and enjoy doing enough that you're going to do it regularly. Now, should you enjoy doing your cardio exercise? I think there should be a limited amount of enjoyment to it. I mean, you should kind of like it because you know how good you feel when you're done, but not like it so much that, oh, this is just so pleasurable, because you're not probably pushing yourself hard enough if it's totally pleasurable.
Speaking of pushing yourself in a long or in a low intensity steady state, would you ever sign up for like a marathon or anything like Hood to Coast or some challenge like that?
No.
Okay.
And I give that a sharp no, because many years ago when I was in my best shape and I was probably at least 30 pounds lighter than I am right now, and I could run pretty well. I had really good VO2 max. And again, some of this was just stupidity and jumping into a training program a little bit too aggressively, too early. But I had a friend who was a member of the club that I worked at. There was a marathon runner, and he convinced me to train for the Pittsburgh Marathon. And I went out on a long run with him and his running group on a Saturday. And it was they were doing a 20-mile run, and not too bad. I'd not run that distance in my life, but we went out and I kept up with them. They were running about a 7.5-minute pace. I kept with them for 16 miles. And then at the 16-mile mark, all of a sudden it just hit me. I mean, it was a struggle to finish up. When I finished that run, I felt like somebody had separated my hip joint, rubbed sandpaper on the head of the femur, and then put it back in the acetabulum and kind of reconnected my hip. And I'm walking on that for days. It was so painful. And I just I don't think my body is designed for marathon running. And it's not that I can't run that distance. I'm too competitive with myself that for me to run a marathon, I would have to do it sub 3 minutes, 3 hours, just to feel like I accomplished something. And at my weight and my body type, that could be pretty stressful on my body. And it's not a goal. It's not a priority for me. It's not improving my heart health. It's not doing anything for me on the long term. For me, I want to invest my time and exercise where I'm going to need it the most. And for me, that's with strength and resistance training, minimizing the cardio. So I really hit the Tabata kind of hard, try and get as much physical activity as I can to maintain my heart health. But I'm more focused on the resistance training. So yeah, I'm not going to run a marathon. I maybe could be tempted to run a 5K again. I used to enjoy running those and actually did fairly well for my age group. And especially if they had Clydesdale divisions, I did really well. But I just don't have the desire.
What recommendation would you make for someone incorporating resistance exercise to aging well?
Try periodization. And we've already kind of talked about that a little bit. I think kind of varying up the routine, doing more than just the standard ACSM guidelines, 8 to 10 exercises of 8 to 12 repetitions for, 1 to 2 sets. Start doing a little bit more lower repetition, higher weights, do some, higher volume type of training. So vary your intensities, the volumes that you're doing, the number of sets, work a more progressive plan where you go through cycles of, starting week one of a cycle where you're, say, maybe doing 3 sets of the exercise. And then the next week you build up to 4, and you build up to 5, and then maybe you deload. There's a lot of recent evidence, and I was just watching a video recently with Mike Israetel interviewing a graduate student, I believe it was Lehman's College in Brooklyn, who's been doing a lot of research on really, really high volume. And they actually showed you can go up to as much as 52 sets per week of a given exercise and see significant gains. And I think it was about 37 sets was the average number of sets per week that the individuals were doing that were in that high, really, really high volume group. And the key is you take a longer period of time, you progress that volume up, and then you kind of cycle it back. And so the more we can kind of cycle through the intensities and the volumes that we're doing, the more we're enabling our body to recover, but also we are maximizing or optimizing the stimulus of the exercise. So periodization can be a very, very important thing to get the most optimal gains that one can get. And it doesn't end when your athletic career ends. I think it's equally important. I'm 60 years old, and I'm probably getting better gains by better understanding and better managing my own periodization plan. What recommendations would you make?
No, I would agree with you. Well, for my recommendations, I would always say, doing the lower levels of reps, but higher, heavier weights, and then switching it up. So really, really fatiguing the muscles that way, and then switching it up to lighter weights and going to do like a burnout. Does that make sense?
So you're talking in one workout, do your maybe higher intensity sets and then do more of a drop set.
Yeah. So like in a workout, doing like that 3 to 6 or 3 to 5 and just go really, really heavy. And I don't mean like, I did 5. That was super easy. It's once you surpass rep 3, your last 2 you're struggling to getting it up there. And then after that, maybe add 1 or 2 sets of just a straight burnout where you grab lighter weights and you're just trying to get in as many reps as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things in there. One is this idea of, again, with periodization, that as you go from week to week, your intensities increase. Maybe, early on, you have like 3 to 4 repetitions in the tank where you could do a few more repetitions. I mean, you can't just keep cranking them out, but you know that in about 3 or 4 more repetitions, I'm going to be failing here. I'm going to be fatigued. And then the next week, it might be, 2 to 3. And then that final week, it might be, 1 to 2, or even 0 to 1. You might even go to failure on the final set, but you're kind of ramping up that intensity. And then the value of that drop set is you go back a certain amount of weight. You don't want to have too many repetitions, so you don't want it to go too light, but go back enough that you're doing probably anywhere from maybe 15, 17 repetitions. I love doing that. And I've seen some of the best benefits doing that most recently, where I'll do kind of more of a 5x5 type of plan, where I'll do 5 sets. I'm finding it easier rather than doing a straight 5 sets at the same weight. I do a progressive, like more of a pyramid up, where I do 5 reps, but I go up maybe, say on a squat, 30 pounds at a time. So I start at a moderate weight, what should be really my minimum effective volume or weight, and then progress up to kind of my heaviest, my maximum. And so that builds up my strength. And then I drop back usually to either that starting working set, or my second set, use that weight and then do quote unquote as many repetitions as possible. But, usually it's about 17 repetitions. And I'm feeling that. It feels really good.
Right.
So I think that's a good recommendation.
Thank you. What behaviors do you want to change in 2024?
Oh boy, there are a lot of behaviors I should change in 2024. Let's just focus on the physical. So physically, I would say to hydrate better. One of my wrestlers, Zach, gifted me with a supply of Liquid IV Hydration Multiplier. I really love that product. I love that stuff. And thanks, Zach, for giving that to me, because now you got me hooked on it, got my son hooked on it. So I got to buy mass quantities of it to keep up with it. But I use it to blend my creatine and my branched chain amino acids for my morning workout. I talked about that a little bit earlier. This is kind of that third component of that hydration beverage. But in general, though, I think I need to drink more water. And it's a challenge. It's drinking enough water when I have an hour commute and I have a 60-year-old bladder and prostate that, urination frequency can be a bit more demanding as you get older. It makes you a little bit more hesitant to drink a lot of fluid. And so I need to focus more on drinking water. I do drink plenty of beverages. Again, like I said, I have probably at least 3 of my meals a day are smoothie based. So that does count toward hydration. I do drink some coffee, which, again, certainly doesn't help with the bladder issues, but, I drink some coffee. So I get enough fluid, but I need to drink more water. And that's a bit hard. I don't like the taste of water because there is no taste. What behavior would you change?
I would probably change less screen time. I don't know what it is. It's like, just less screen time altogether, whether it's TV, whether it's on my phone, looking at like YouTube, going down the YouTube rabbit hole. But yeah, I would say for my biggest thing is just less screen time.
I think that's probably most of our population. We are on our screens far too much. And when people say, well, I don't have time to exercise, I generally, my bullshit goes up, because it's like, how much time are you spending on your computer? How much time are you spending on your screen watching, cat videos, or how much time are you, watching TV? And you can be spending that time exercising.
Well, if I'm being honest, I'm starting to realize that I've become a little addicted to YouTube. Like I'll just click on something and then they'll have a suggested next video, and you're just like, oh man. And then hours will go by and you're like, what the heck what did I do? And oh my gosh, I got to go to bed, or whatever the case is. And it's weird because it's like you never really had a problem. And then you're starting to see, oh man, I almost can't go through my day without looking at YouTube, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, that shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be like, I don't know. So, and it's crazy. I don't even have other social media. I have a Facebook, but I haven't been on it in 9 years now. And to me, that was one of the best decisions ever, is just getting off of that. And now I'm starting to see myself going down another form of social media rabbit hole. Instead of focusing on what everyone else is doing, what everyone else thinks, now I'm just focusing on things that, this is really interesting, but it's also kind of mind numbing at the same time. And I got to eliminate screen time. So
for me, FaceTime for me has been a valuable tool in keeping connected with people, as I have relationships with people all across the globe, and it enables me to kind of keep in touch with them. But it's, for me, trying to use it more productively, as opposed to just that mind-numbing scrolling down and then getting sucked into some of these, really negative conversations that might come up on social media and stuff like that. I try and avoid that. But from the standpoint of, certain screen time, like, getting sucked into YouTube, I would recommend kind of taking Sandy Griffin's advice. She talked about how when she first started really kind of getting back in exercise, she had a favorite show that she liked to watch, but she could only watch it if she was on the bike, so as she was exercising. And so use that opportunity to say, okay, I'm only going to be on YouTube when I'm on my stationary bike. And so as long as I'm on a stationary bike, I can be watching social media, or I can be watching YouTube. And then that way, you get sucked into more and more videos. You're spending more and more time doing that exercise. So there are ways that we can feed some of that, call it an addiction, but do it in a healthy fashion. We're not letting it take away from our exercise. We're actually using it as a tool to exercise more. So I challenge you to get yourself a stationary bike. You got plenty of money now. So buy a stationary bike, we have a mount for ours that I can put my iPad in. And, I usually watch Netflix or something like that while I'm biking. But, if you want to keep hitting that, next video, you can do it as long as you're pedaling.
Okay. So that brings up another point that I was kind of thinking about this. I think that's great advice, but doesn't having something, whether it's music or having a TV or video or show or whatever, while you're working out, it's almost like that portion distracts you from the workout. And I know some people are probably listening to this and they're like, well, yeah, dude, I want to be distracted from the pain I'm causing my own body. But I do think that there's something really poetic of going in without any music or any distractions and just going in and becoming kind of one with your body and going through that pain or that torture and pushing yourself to that other side. I think there is something really, really fascinating that you don't need a distraction to get you to that next level. You don't need a distraction to get you to that pump, like that pain or exhaustion or fatigue or whatever you're feeling in that moment. You eventually adapt and you learn, oh, this is only temporary and I can push through this. I don't know. Thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, different strokes for different folks. I think if that works for you, if that's what you want, well, then if you're going to exercise, you're going to have to give up some of that YouTube.
That's true.
And so if you don't want any kind of distractions in there, then that's fine. But realize the exercise has got to be the priority and you have to give this other up. For some people, using that distraction may help them to be able to actually exercise more. And so, again, it's that opportunity cost piece. What activities are we doing during the day that are leading us to aging well? And if they're not helping us to age well, then don't do them.
Speaking of pushing yourself, any new equipment you plan to buy for your home gym?
I can't think of anything I might want to buy, but I would like to master using my Fitball from Souplace. But that a few years ago, and it's similar to the Bulgarian bag, except it's basically a medicine ball with kind of handle straps on it, and you can spin it and slam it and do different stuff. And I haven't quite mastered that yet. And I would like to use that a little bit more. It's been a bit challenging kind of using it in the space that we have. But other than that, I mean, equipment that we have, I have a pretty well-equipped gym at home right now. I was tempted to ask for chains for my Olympic weights for a Christmas gift, but I kind of backpedaled on that. I still would like those, but it's not an absolute necessity for me. So if I'm going to buy anything, that's probably what I would buy next. The other thing would be, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the product, but it's these handles that you put on your dumbbells and they can hook onto your barbell so that you're not having to struggle to get a heavy barbell or dumbbell up into, say, a bench pressing position, and you just lift it off the bar and then you do your lifts and then hang it again. I think that might be good for somebody, particularly if they have shoulder issues and want to do some heavy dumbbell work. You?
No, I just need to get to the gym. Like, I don't really have any home. I live in an apartment, so I don't really have what I would need for that home, but I think it's just getting to the actual gym itself.
It's stationary bike with, something to put your iPad on so you can watch your YouTube.
All right. Last but not least, are there any recommendations for wellness in 2024 or what you like to refer to as a well-centered fitness, or SPIES as your friend? Is it Jay who likes to call it that?
Yeah, it's Jay.
SPIES, that stands for spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social, correct?
Yes, for spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. For me, I'd say focus on gratitude. Make it a daily habit.
Gratitude with 2 T's, attitude of gratitude.
Right, an attitude of gratitude. What would you recommend?
I love that attitude of gratitude. You know, I started using that more and more was, I honestly, I think it's just, I love Jay's acronym for SPIES. I think that's, if we can prioritize that, I think that's just, I think it's so simple. And yet the benefits of prioritizing that can go so incredibly far. There's a lot of people in today's day and age where they're placed in situations, whether it's their family life or their home life or even their professional work life. And whatever that situation that they're placed in, there's almost a lack of gratification with it. And there's a sense of resentment or just begrudgingly going through the motions and hating whatever it is that they're doing. And that's sad. And you see it almost everywhere. But having an attitude of gratitude and being grateful for what you have and appreciating it. And no matter what situation that you're in, you're going to give it your absolute best. And it doesn't have to hinder you. That goes a really, really long way, not just for the particular moment that you're in, but it carries forward into as we age, we have a different mindset or mentality that, hey, this isn't that bad. You know, it could be worse. And I'm really appreciative for what I do have. And so I'm going to make the best of it.
Gave me an idea for a future podcast, maybe for early 2024. We'll call it Spies Like Us.
Ooh.
And how we apply the spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social components of the well-centered fitness model.
Yeah, we'll do a 007. 0 complaining, 0 whining.
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
There you go.
There you go.
All right. We got a new little phrase to say now.
All right. Is there anything else, really?
I don't think so. Let's wrap it up.
Okay. So in conclusion,
as we wrap up the year.
We wrap up the year. It's always good to set goals or set a New Year's resolution. And it's also good to self-reflect and go back on what it is that we did the previous year. Did we hit those goals? Did we reach it? And if we didn't, how can we improve for the next time? And how can we get after it? What do we need to change and tweak? Because we're always evolving, we're always growing, and we're always aging. So whenever we do age, make sure that we
age well.
Perfect.
Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.